Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out my entire collection of Jurassic World, Primal Attack, and Savage Strike figures. First up, we've got the Extreme Chompin' Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. It's a medium-sized T-Rex figure, and of course it has the button on the top of its head for chomping. Next up is the Primal Attack, Control, and Conquer Carnitorus figure. It's got a bright orange-red body, and it has a chomping action as well as a head-moving action. Here is the epic Roarin' Tyrannosaurus Rex figure, and it's one of my favorites. It's quite a lot larger than the T-Rex that we just saw. It's got a light brown body with the dark brown on top, and you can use the tail to control the head and open and close the jaw. This next ginormous figure is the Destroy and Devour Indominus Rex. This figure's even bigger than the T-Rex figures that we've seen, and it has two actions. First, it has an arm attack, and it has a roaring jaw action. And now let's grab this huge aquatic dinosaur. This is the Real Feel Mosasaurus figure. This dinosaur was one of the stars of the first Jurassic World movie, and you can open and close its jaw, move its fins, and as you can tell from the name, it has a much more lifelike feel than many of the other figures. It's a bit softer. Up next is the Bite and Fight Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. Now this T-Rex may look similar to the previous ones, but it has a totally different attack. It has a tear-in attack with its mouth. See how its neck twists all the way to the side? And it also has a secondary button for swinging the tail back and forth too. This figure is really wild. This is the Primal Attack Massive Biters Tarbosaurus. It's got a ton of crazy spines running all the way up from its head to its tail. It has some pretty cool coloring. I like how it's subtle along its body and then bright red along its neck. And it has a jaw chomping action too. This figure is another Primal Attack Massive Biters figure. This is the Seats Microrarum, and it's got some pretty crazy coloring and details. Check out all those little spikes right on the top of its head and on its back. And of course it has some super bright orange and blue coloring too. And best of all, it has a jaw chomping action as well. Up next is the Primal Attack Control and Conquer Carnitorus Toro figure. It has a dark brown body, a lot darker than the Carnitorus that we saw earlier, and it has the jaw chomping action and the head moving action too. This is another Massive Biters from the Primal Attack series. This is the Albertosaurus figure. This figure is pretty recognizable because of the green all over the body with the orange stripe on both sides. And of course, it has the jaw chomping action and the head moving action too. Also from the Massive Biters toy line is this Sarcosuchus figure. This figure is really long. It's probably around a foot in length. It's got all sorts of texturing and detailing. You can see 2 rows of spikes right on its back that go all the way down its tail. And of course it has a long and narrow snout, very similar to an alligator's, and it has the jaw chomping action too. Here is the Primal Attack Sound Strike Majungasaurus. And as you can hear, it comes with sound effects, although it seems to be a little bit broken at the moment. This is a bit smaller of a figure, but it still has some really cool coloring and tons of little spikes and details all over its body. And while there's no button to open and close the jaw on this figure, you can use the tail to move the head around. Up next is the Primal Attack Sound Strike Irritator. This figure has a similar body shape to a Baryonyx, although it does have a little spine that runs down its back. And on this figure, there's no button to open and close the mouth, but you can use the tail to move the head around. And check out those sound effects too. Here's another Primal Attack Sound Strike figure. This is the Sinoceratops. And this figure comes in the light gray with some tan detailing. The coolest coloring and detailing is this bright orange and yellow along its face and the super black eyes. And this figure has a head attack action. Check that out, and sound effects too. Next up for Primal Attack is this Sound Strike Parasaurolophus figure. It is bright yellow, it has some reflective pink along its back and its legs, and the best part is that it has a head attack action. Also from the Sound Strike series is this Pteranodon figure. This version is in the dark orange and maroon coloring along its wings, and it has 2 action buttons, one to operate the mouth with sound effects, and the other button to operate the wings. Here is the Primal Attack Soundstrike Cryolophosaurus figure. There are other versions of this dinosaur, but this one is in the bright yellow, brown, and orange coloring. And there is no button to open and close the mouth, but you can use the tail for a head attack action. Here's another Pteranodon figure from Primal Attack. This one has some even cooler coloring, I think. While it's mostly brown, it has some really cool green striping along its wings and a darker green coloring along its face. And just like the other Pteranodon figure, there's one button to operate the mouth and another button to flap the wings. Here is the Primal Attack Edmontosaurus figure. This figure stands on all four legs. It's got some light tan and dark green-blue coloring, with the brightest coloring along its face. And like many other figures, this comes with a head attack feature. Now here is a Savage Strike figure. This is the Styracosaurus. It's a pretty small figure. This version comes with the light green and brown with the bright orange and yellow detailing along the face. And this figure has a head thrash attack that you activate by pressing on the tail. Up next is the Pachycephalosaurus figure from Savage Strike. It's colored bright green on the underbelly and orange along the rest of the body, and it has a head ramming action that you activate by pressing on the tail. Up next is a Velociraptor figure from the Attack Pack series. It's dark blue with some red detailing along the top, and it has a fully posable body. From the Savage Strike series is this Velociraptor Charlie figure. It's bright green and has some darker green along the top, and the coolest part of all is that this figure has a claw slashing action by pressing this button on the top. Check it out, here's another Velociraptor figure from the Savage Strike series. This is Velociraptor Delta. This Velociraptor is colored a much more dark blue-green color, but just like the other figure, it has a button on its back for the claw slashing action. Over here I've got two different Stygimoloch figures. This one is from Jurassic World, and this one is from Camp Cretaceous, both from the Savage Strike toy line. They've got quite a bit of different coloring along their whole body, but they both still have that super hard shelled head for headbutting with the spikes right along the back. And both these figures have a head ramming action when you press down on the tail. Next up from Camp Cretaceous Savage Strike is this Plesiosaurus figure. It is way smaller than the Mosasaurus figure that we saw earlier. It's got a much longer neck and a mouth that you can open manually, and there is a button on its back to move the flippers up and down. Here is a wild looking winged dinosaur. This is the Tapehara from the Savage Strike series. It's got some crazy cool coloring and texture detailing along its wings, and a super bright head and frill right on the top of its head. Plus there's a tiny little button on its back to flip the wings up and down. I've got two other winged dinosaurs. These two are from the Attack Pack, and I believe they are called the Rhamphorhynchus dinosaur. One of them's a bright green color with some darker green on the body, and the other figure has some white, dark blue, and orange. And both of them have a super long and narrow snout with tons of huge teeth inside. This is the Sauropelta figure from the Savage Strike series. It's got a fully armored body all over, and it's got tons of spikes along its shoulders, and it has a spring-loaded spike attack action. Next up is a Dilophosaurus figure from the Savage Strike series. This figure features the giant frill right beside its head and an attack button when you press down on the tail. Here is the Minmi figure from the Attack Pack series. Like the Sauropelta, it has a fully armored body, and it's got spikes all over its back instead of the large ones on its shoulders. This next figure is from the Attack Pack series too. This is the Troodon. It's got a pretty small body, it has an interesting spine running along its back, and on the top of its head too. Here is a Dimorphodon figure from the Attack Pack series. It has bright orange and red on the underside of its wings, while the rest of its body is a dark green color, and you can manually open and close the mouth too. Next from the Attack Pack is this Herrerasaurus figure. It's got some pretty bright coloring with the soft green and darker green and light blue coloring right along the top, and this figure is fully posable too. Also part of the Attack Pack series is this bright green Dracorex. There's some gray striping along its back and on its legs, and it's got tons of spikes along the back of its head. This is the Calavosaurus figure from the Attack Pack series. It stands on all 4 legs and has 3 different colors. It's got bright orange on the top, some light blue along the tail, and the rest of its body is a dark blue color, except for its mouth, which is bright blue again. And finally, from the Attack Pack series is this tiny little Ornithosceles figure. Most of its body is a dark brown color. It has some yellow detailing along the top with the gray underbelly. This dinosaur really looks like it could run fast. This is a collection of Predator vs. Predator figures from Jurassic World, and we're going to be comparing all of them against each other. The first 2 figures to face off in this collection is this Spinosaurus and this battle-damaged T-Rex. Let's check out the Spinosaurus first. This is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, so this one's actually pretty hard to find nowadays. It's got the huge front arms, it's got a long and narrow snout with a lot of teeth, and this figure is quite a bit larger than its opponent, the battle-damaged T-Rex. This figure is a bright orange color. It's got battle-damaged slashes painted all over its body, even right on its face and on its chin. Now this T-Rex has tiny arms compared to the Spinosaurus, but it's still got the same jaw-chomping action. Next up for the versus is this T-Rex versus this Allosaurus figure. Let's start with the T-Rex. This is the Jurassic World Dominion battle-damaged T-Rex. It's got a darker orange body than the T-Rex that we just saw, and you can turn the battle damage on and off with the click of a button, and overall it has some pretty cool detailing and darker shading. Now let's see what's different about this huge Allosaurus figure, also from Jurassic World Dominion. Now this figure also has battle damage on the side, but you can even open it up and move the ribs to show the stomach underneath. Now this Allosaurus is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, but it still has an awesome button for jaw chomping and sound effects. Up next for our Predator competition is this Jurassic Park Utah Raptor versus this new Dino Trackers Endoraptor. Let's first check out this Endoraptor. It is super reflective. It's a dark blue color. I think it might be just around the same size as the Utah Raptor, but it's got some really cool actions. First, you can move its arms for some sound effects and a jaw-chomping action. And it's also got a button on its back for more jaw-chomping action. Now let's see how this super old Utah Raptor holds up. You can see that little Jurassic Park tattoo on its leg right there. Now this figure used to be battery operated, but unfortunately since it's so old, it doesn't work anymore. Like many of the vintage Jurassic Park figures, it has a soft rubbery skin, and it still has a chomping action when you press down on its tail. Next, let's go with a Carnitorus versus an Albertosaurus. The Albertosaurus is a little bit smaller than the Carnitorus, and it has much brighter coloring. It's got the orange stripe running down its side and the green body, and the tail twists back and forth to control the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's check out this bigger Carnitorus figure. This figure is dark brown with a gray underbelly. It's got even smaller arms than a T-Rex does. And you'll notice that the Albertosaurus arms are a little bit bigger. And just like the Albertosaurus, the tail swivels back and forth to move the head and for a jaw-chomping action. For our next versus, let's grab this other Carnitorus figure versus this Suchomimus. Let's start with the Carnitorus. This figure is a bit smaller than the darker Carnitorus that we just saw. The coloring overall is a lot more simplistic. There's not anywhere near as much shading. There's a little bit of white underneath its chin and some dark coloring on its neck and the top of its head. And the actions are a bit more simplistic too. There is one button at the top of its back for some sound effects. Let's compare that to this bright yellow Suchomimus figure. This Jurassic World figure stands a little bit taller than the Carnitorus figure. It's got a huge spine that runs all the way from the head down to the tail. And just like the Spinosaurus, it has a long and narrow snout with a bunch of teeth on the inside. And this figure has 2 actions. The first is a jaw-chomping action, and the second is a tail-swinging action. Our next 2 predators are this huge Scorpius Rex figure and this even larger T-Rex figure. Let's start with the T-Rex figure. It's got a light brown body with the darker coloring along the top, and you can move all its limbs, and it has the single button on the top of its head for the chomping action. Now the Scorpius Rex has a few more features. First off, I love the detailing on this figure. There's some bumps, you can see this huge ridge running down its back. It's got these tiny little spikes on its elbows, and of course it's got the poisonous quills on the end of its tail, and it still has 2 action buttons. The first moves its jaw, and check out those super awesome teeth, and the second button moves its arms for slashing. Our next 2 predators are first a Carcharodontosaurus versus a Cryolophosaurus. The Carcharodontosaurus is definitely a little bit bigger, but the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow than the Carcharodontosaurus. Comparing the size, the Carcharodontosaurus is a little bit bigger, and the Cryolophosaurus is a brighter yellow color. It's got movable limbs, and you can use the tail to swing the head around. And the Carcharodontosaurus, though it's not as bright, it still has some bright orange running down its back and on its neck. And instead of the tail as the action button on this figure, there's a button on its back for a chomping action. Right here, we've got a Metriacanthosaurus versus an Allosaurus figure from Jurassic Park. Let's check out this vintage figure first. Now this Allosaurus looks quite a bit different from the new Jurassic World figures. It's got a different head shape and a slightly different body. But the cool thing about this figure is that there's multiple battle damage parts that you can take off of its body. Check that out, and even on its tail too. Look at all that battle damage. That is super cool. Now let's compare that with the Metriacanthosaurus. I believe this is from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom era. It's pretty bright in color, and it's around the same size as the Allosaurus figure. And this one doesn't have any battle damage, but it does have an action button on its back to control the jaw. Before we continue on with the rest of the bin, let's actually open up this new Hammond Collection Concavinator. Alright, now I think I only have one other Concavinator figure in my entire collection, so I'm super happy to add this one. It looks like it has quite a few different colors on its body. It's mainly got this blue, and there's some bright orange, brown, light tan, and then a very dark red right around its eyes. And since it's a Hammond Collection figure, it doesn't have any action buttons, but its body is super posable. You can bend it at all of its limbs and joints. And its neck and head is especially posable, which I really like. All in all, I think this figure stands up to the quality of all of the other Hammond Collection figures. Next up for our Predator versus Predator, we've got another Carnitorus versus an Allosaurus. The Carnitorus figure is quite a bit larger than the Allosaurus, so let's check this one out first. Now this figure has a bright orange body with the gray underbelly. It's got the tiny little front arms, just like the figure we saw earlier, and it also has the tail that you can move back and forth to move the head and chomp the jaw. Now let's see what's different about this Allosaurus figure. I think this one is even brighter in color. It's got the yellow and 2 tones of blue. It's got bigger front arms than the Carnitorus figure. It's also got a tiny little row of spines running down its back to its tail. And this figure has 2 action buttons. The first operates the jaw, and the second moves the arms up and down. The next 2 predators are this Dilophosaurus versus the Scorpiovenator. These figures are around the same size, but you'll see that the Dilophosaurus is a little bit longer. Now this Dilophosaurus is the basic edition, so there is no action button. You can move the limbs a little bit, and you can activate the frills, but sadly that's pretty much it. Let's see how that compares against the Scorpiovenator. This figure is pretty brightly colored as well, and you can move all of the limbs, but this figure does have an action button. When you press down on its back, it activates the chomping action. Check out those sound effects too. Next, we've got the Siatsmicararum versus the Irritator. Between these two, the Siatsmicararum is definitely the larger dinosaur. It's got tons of spikes on its head, running all the way down to its back. And like many of the other figures we've seen so far, you can move the tail back and forth to move its head and chomp its jaw. Now let's check out its competitor, this Irritator. Although it's a little bit smaller, it still has some really cool coloring with the 2 tones of blue on the top. And on this figure, you can use the tail to move the head around as well. although you have to open and close the mouth manually. Let's keep on going. For our next versus, we've got a Ceratosaurus versus an Indoraptor, and see how much longer the Indoraptor is compared to the Ceratosaurus. This Indoraptor is the basic edition, so once again, there are no action buttons that you can press, but you can still move its arms, legs, and its tail, and it's still got some awesome spikes on its body. Let's see how the Ceratosaurus is different. It's got a dark green body with some black detailing on the top. This dinosaur seems a lot more bulkier in size. And of course, it's got an action at the top of its back for roaring and sound effects. This is the Baryonyx versus the Amber Collection Raptor. I think the Baryonyx is a little bit bigger, but this Raptor is so much more brighter. Because this figure is from the Amber Collection, there's a lot more attention to the coloring, and the limbs can be posed in many more different ways too. This figure is perfect for posing on a display shelf. Now let's check out its competitor, the Baryonyx. Because this figure isn't from the Amber Collection, there's not as much that you can pose on its body, but the cool part about this figure is that it has an action button on its back. Check out that chomping action. Now let's compare two very different dinosaurs. This is a Pteranodon versus an Allosaurus. This Pteranodon figure has foldable wings that you can open up, and it's probably a foot in length from wingtip to wingtip, and it's got a button on its back to flap the wings too. Plus, you can open and close its mouth manually. Now let's see this Allosaurus figure. This one is pretty simplistic in color. It has the gray on the sides and then the yellow detailing all along the top. Of course, it's got the iconic ridge right above its eye. And on this figure, there's one single action button for the jaw. These next two figures are smaller. I believe this one is called an Elaphrosaurus versus, if I remember correctly, the Rugops Primus figure. The Elaphrosaurus has a long and narrow snout and is mostly tan. It's got some brown as well. But this other figure, it's got darker coloring as well, and you can move its tiny little arms and open and close its mouth. Up next, we've got two different raptor species. This first one is a Pyroraptor from Jurassic World Dominion, and this other one is, I believe, an Amber Collection Velociraptor. Just like many of the other Amber Collection figures, it is a lot more posable than many of the normal figures, and they did a pretty decent job with its coloring as well. And the Pyroraptor has some decent detailing. You can check out all those feather designs right there. And the coolest part, I think, about the Pyroraptor are these huge feathers right at the top of its head. And next, we've got a Jurassic World miniature T-Rex figure versus a Jurassic Park Velociraptor. Both these figures are pretty old, but this Velociraptor is the oldest. It's got a spring-loaded chomping action, and it features some pretty unique coloring that I don't think I have another Velociraptor that's colored like this. Now let's check out this other miniature T-Rex figure. This specific figure comes from an older line from Jurassic World. I think it was actually made by Hasbro, so it's got some battle damage right there on the side. And on this figure, you can move the tail back and forth and side to side to operate the jaw and the head. Today on Amazing Dinosaurs, we are checking out Jurassic World Dino Trackers and Roar Attack Collection. I've got some new ones over here as well. Let's get started with the Dino Trackers because those are the newest figures. This first one is the Diabloceratops. It's got some crazy horns in the front and some unique dark red coloring. Plus it has an action button on its back to move its head back and forth. This is from the Gigantic Tracker series. This is the Stegosaurus. It's got some pretty bright coloring all over its body. You can see there's all sorts of little specks of different color in there as well. And it comes with this awesome Dino Tracker backpack. And it has two action buttons. One swings the tail up and down, and the other swings the tail back and forth. Next up is another gigantic tracker. This is the Sinotyrannus. It's got a dark green body with some red detailing on its tail, on its neck, and on its head. It comes with these interesting binocular light type of things. And it has two action buttons on its back. One moves its head, and the other moves its tail. Next up is the Track and Attack Endoraptor. This is one of the newest Endoraptors released. If you pull on its arms, it moves its head. And it has a button on its back to open its mouth. check out that awesome reflective blue coloring too. Here we've got the Dinosaurs from the Dino Trackers series. This figure is mostly darker in colors, but it does have tons of spikes along its body, and it has a dual action button on its back that you can use to move its head back and forth. This is the Carnitorus from the Dino Trackers series. It is an aquatic dinosaur, so it's got 4 fins, and this figure also has the dual action button on its back to move its head back and forth. And next up for the Dino Trackers, we have the Austroraptor figure. So this figure is in the same family as a Velociraptor, but you can see it has a much longer and narrower snout. And on this figure, you can adjust the tail, the legs, the arms, the neck, and the mouth. All right, let's check out this new Dino Trackers set that I'm adding to my collection. This is the Search and Smash Truck set. Let's first check out this Atrociraptor. It's about the same size as some of the other mini Atrociraptor figures that I have. It's got some pretty unique coloring though. It's got some bright red-orange coloring along the front, while the rest of its body is a soft tan color with a little bit of black on the top. And this set actually comes with a tracker that you can put right on to the Atrociraptor. Check that out, it's pretty cool. This set also comes with a soldier who's got a brown vest and also a weapon. And the biggest part of all is this Jeep. And it has a special feature where you can press down on the hood and it'll actually capsize. And next up from the Dino Trackers is the Elaphrosaurus. This figure's got some soft blue coloring with some green detailing, and it's got a real mean looking face. All right, moving on to the Roar Attack series, we've got the Baryonyx Chaos figure. This figure has some bright blue detailing along the top of its head and a slide lever action for the sound effects and chomping action. Here is our first Allosaurus figure. This figure has the brown body with the blue detailing along the top. It's got some little spikes running down its spine, and it's got the slide lever action on its back for the roaring and sound effects. Next up from Roar Attack is this Ceratosaurus figure. It's a bit smaller than the Allosaurus figure. It's got the red and black coloring along the top, and of course the slide lever action for the chomping and the roar sound effects. This next figure is actually a Mega Destroyer figure. This is the Carcharodontosaurus. It's got an action button right on its back for the chomping. And you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail too. Here's another Mega Destroyer Carcharodontosaurus. It's pretty much the same aside from this awesome coloring. It's got the blue and the orange and brown, and of course the action button on its back for chomping. Here is the next Roar Attack Allosaurus. This one has the dark green, white, and red. And you can move its arms, its legs, and its tail. And it has the slide lever button on its back to activate the sound effects. Here is another Mega Destroyer. This is the Pentaceratops, and this figure is quite large. It's got the soft brown body with the gray detailing and 2 action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second swivels its entire torso back and forth. And these are probably some of the largest horns that I've seen. This is the Roar Attack Kentrosaurus. It's got spikes all over its body, but the coolest part are these huge spikes coming right out of the side. And you can actually swing those spikes back and forth using this slide lever action. This is the Mega Destroyer Stegosaurus figure with the camouflage green, tan, and brown coloring. And it's got the hidden action button that you can press to swing its entire torso and its tail back and forth. And those are some pretty long spikes too. This is the Ceratosaurus figure with the dark green and black coloring. It's got the tiny little horn on its head, and there's a slide lever action for the chomping and sound effects. This one's an interesting looking dinosaur. This is the Oranosaurus from Roar Attack. It's got a huge spine running along its back and a slide lever action on its side to move the head up and down. This next figure is Ankylosaurus Bumpy. It's got the huge shell on its back, the spikes coming off the side, and a slide lever action to swing its tail back and forth. And last of all, we've got Baryonyx Limbo in the green, dark green, and brown coloring. You can move its arms, its legs, and its tail, and you can use the slide lever action to open and close its mouth. Today on Amazing Dinosaurs, we are checking out a collection of T-Rexes versus Spinosaurid figures. Let's get started with this first T-Rex front and center. This is the Stomp and Escape T-Rex. You can twist the tail to stomp its feet up and down. And you can press the button on its back to lift its head up for a roar. From the Spinosaurid side, we have this Spinosaurus figure. This is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus with the dark green body and the classic red spine. And you can use the button on its head to open and close its mouth. On the T-Rex side, we've got this smaller T-Rex figure with the brown and gray coloring. It's pretty adjustable. You can move the arms, legs, and tail, and you can move the neck around, so it's actually double jointed, and it has a button on the top of its head to open and close the mouth. The next Spinosaurid is another Spinosaurus figure, but with totally different coloring. This one is actually custom colored, so it is a lot more detailed and a bit crazy with the coloring. It's really cool. And it has the same features of the movable arms, legs, tail, and head, and the button at the top of its head to open and close the jaw. On the T-Rex side, we've got one of the coolest figures yet. This is the new Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. This is one of the most posable figures I have. You can twist its torso, its head, its neck, its tail is double jointed, and its face is one of the most realistic that I have. Check out those marble eyes. I really love that feature. From the Spinosaurid side, we've got an Ichthyovenator dinosaur. This dinosaur, of course, has the huge spine on its back and stands on its two legs. It's got some super bright green coloring and some darker green as well. And this Spinosaurid figure has an action that when you press down on its back, it chomps its mouth. On the T-Rex side, we've got a Terran T-Rex. As you can tell by the name, it has a tearing feature with a button on its back. Plus, it even has a second button for swinging the tail back and forth too, and the tail is double jointed. Here is another giant Spinosaurus figure. This one is the classic Camp Cretaceous figure with the brown and red spine, and it's got the orange eyes and the button on the top of its head to open and close its mouth. Next up, we've got a new figure from the Tyrannosaurus family. This is the Sinotyrannus figure. Let's check it out, but before we do, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Alright, here it is, and it comes with this dino tracking headpiece right here, which is pretty cool. It's got some interesting texturing all over its body, it's got some spikes at the top, it's got a double jointed tail, and you can see that there are two buttons on its back. The first button activates its tail for swinging back and forth, and the second button activates its jaw and its neck too. From the Spinosaurid side, we have a Suchomimus figure with the yellow and brown coloring. And this figure has two action buttons. The first operates the chomping on the jaw, and the second activates the swinging of the tail. This next T-Rex that I've got is a huge one, and it is one of my favorite colored T-Rexes. This is actually custom colored, and it looks like a camo green color all over its body. And on this figure, you can use the tail to lift its head up for a roar, or you can move the tail for a chomping action too. Here's another T-Rex figure. This one is a bit older. It has a rubberized tail and a chomping action when you move the tail. The next Spinosaurid figure is a custom Hammond Collection Spinosaurus figure. Check out the cool coloring. It's got the red and of course the red spine and a very adjustable arms, legs, and head as well. Next up, we've got a battle damage T-Rex figure in the orange and brown coloring. You can see the battle damage on its neck, on its chin, on its leg, and everywhere else as well. And like many of the other T-Rex figures, you can use the button at the top of its head to open and close its mouth. The next Spinosaurid is the Irritator. This dinosaur has a smaller spine running down its back, and on this figure you can use the tail to move the head around. Plus, you can manually open the mouth as well. Here's another Spinosaurid. This is the Spinosaurus figure. It's got the dark blue coloring, a huge bright red spine, and you can use the tail to move its head up and down, as well as chomp its jaw shut. Here's one of my oldest Spinosaurus figures. This is from Jurassic Park. It's much smaller and designed very differently. It's got some bright coloring, the huge spine, and a much shorter jaw than many of the new Spinosaurus figures. Here is another classic T-Rex figure from Camp Cretaceous. It's got the brown body and the tail that you can use to operate the neck and the head and open and close its jaws too. Next up, we've got a smaller Spinosaurus figure. This is the basic edition. It's got the dark green with the red spine, and you can only move the arms, the legs, and the tail on this figure. Our last T-Rex of the collection is this baby T-Rex, a whole lot smaller. It's got some bright green coloring though, with some cool detailing along the top, and you can use the tail to open and close the mouth. And last of all is this older Jurassic World Spinosaurus figure. It's a whole lot smaller than many of my other Spinosaurus figures. It's got some battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to move the head around and open and close the jaw.
Today we're checking out Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom versus Camp Cretaceous, and we're going to be putting them all side by side on this super long table for a size comparison. So let's get started with the biggest ones from Camp Cretaceous. This first one is the super colossal Indominus Rex figure. This figure features some really cool looking teeth. It's got huge claws on its hands. It's got some cool detailing along its whole body, a ton of spikes along its back as well. This one is definitely the biggest, and we're gonna put this right here in the Camp Cretaceous line. The next largest is also from Camp Cretaceous actually. This is Carnitorus Toro. This is the super colossal figure. And this figure features the classic clay and brown coloring along the body, along with the battle damage right along its nose, and the two massive horns as well. Let's put this right next to the Indominus Rex on the Camp Cretaceous line. Unfortunately, Fallen Kingdom does not have any super colossal figures, but we'll get started with the biggest figures that I do have from Fallen Kingdom. This first one is a giant T-Rex, and this one features some pretty cool attack moves. If you move its tail, it lifts its head up for a roar, and if you move the tail downwards, it actually chomps it towards the ground. Plus, you can move it side to side to swivel the head too. So we're gonna put this first Fallen Kingdom dinosaur right here. All of our Fallen Kingdom dinosaurs will go along the front right here, and Camp Cretaceous will go along the back. Let's go ahead and grab another Fallen Kingdom dinosaur. This is another T-Rex, but this is the battle damage edition. You can see it has a lot of the same coloring along most of its body as the first T-Rex, but it's got some really cool battle damage coloring. You can see some slashes on its neck, on its chin, and all over its body. And it is a little bit smaller than the first T-Rex, so let's set him down right next to it. Moving on to the next largest Camp Cretaceous, we've got the Spinosaurus figure from Camp Cretaceous with the tan coloring. It's got the super long snout and some really big front arms. You'll notice that the arms on a Spinosaurus are a lot larger than on a T-Rex figure. Look how much bigger it is on a Spinosaurus. Now let's go ahead and set this Spinosaurus next in line on the Camp Cretaceous line. Look at that size difference between the super colossal figure and this Spinosaurus. That is a huge difference. Next from Fallen Kingdom, I think the next biggest figure is the Grab and Growl Indoraptor figure. This figure features super long front arms. It's also got a long tail and 2 attack buttons on its tail. The first activates its claws for slashing back and forth, and the second button activates the jaw, and you can see that its eyes light up as well. That is really cool. Let's set this down next to the battle damaged T-Rex. Going back to Camp Cretaceous, our next biggest dinosaur figure is this Carnitorus figure. And let's check it out compared to the super colossal version way up there. Check out the color difference. This one's a lot darker brown. They both have the damage on their nose though, which is pretty cool. And this Carnitorus has a button on its tail to activate its jaw too. From Fallen Kingdom, we actually have a Carnitorus figure as well. This one is a little bit smaller compared to the Camp Cretaceous Carnitorus. You can see the size difference right there, and the color difference as well. And this figure has a button on its back to activate its jaw and its neck as well. Next from Camp Cretaceous, we've got the Scorpius Rex figure. I think this is the largest Scorpius Rex figure that I have. It's got the yellow underbelly and the black sides and the darker black top. And this figure features some pretty cool attack buttons as well. One for the jaw and then one for slashing the arms too. Let's set this down next to the Carnitorus. From the Fallen Kingdom toy line, we've got another Endoraptor figure that is slightly smaller than the Grab and Growl Endoraptor. It still has the same coloring and many of the same features, but this one doesn't have any attack buttons or anything like that, but it is super posable. From Camp Cretaceous, we've got an Albertosaurus figure with the green and orange coloring. This figure reminds me a lot of a T-Rex, but it's got some differences in some spikes on the top of its head, and I think the shape of this dinosaur's head is a little bit different than a T-Rex as well. So let's go ahead and put this on the Camp Cretaceous line right here, next in size. Next in size from Fallen Kingdom is the Suchomimus figure in the blue and yellow coloring. And it's got an action button on its back for the chomping or roaring action. This is a really colorful dinosaur. Let's put this right next to the Endoraptor figure. Next is the Camp Cretaceous Cryolophosaurus figure. This figure is also in a dark blue color, just like the Suchomimus, but it also has some orange along its back and its head as well. Next up is the Fallen Kingdom Allosaurus figure in the gray and yellow coloring. This figure features some cool detailing along the top of its head. It's got those really tall crown eyebrow-like things, and it's got an action button on its back for chomping its jaw open and shut. Let's set this down next to the Suchomimus. From Camp Cretaceous, we've got a Baryonyx figure in the two-toned green and the brown coloring along the top. This figure features a slide lever action to open and shut the jaw, along with a ton of different sound effects. Now let's put this on the Camp Cretaceous line. Here is the Fallen Kingdom Ceratosaurus figure. This figure has some red, yellow, and black on its body, and it features movable arms, legs, and a tail, and the button on its back to operate the jaw. For Camp Cretaceous, we've got another Baryonyx figure, also with the green and brown, but slightly different coloring. And this figure just has a button on its back to activate the jaw and the sound effects too. On the Fallen Kingdom side, we've got a Metriacanthosaurus figure with this dark yellow and green coloring. This figure features movable arms and legs, and it has a button on the top of its back to activate the jaw. All right, that's looking good so far. Next for Camp Cretaceous, we've got the reflective Parasaurolophus figure. This figure features some really cool coloring. Look how shiny and reflective that is. It also has a tail that moves the head around, and there are adjustable legs on both the back and the front as well. This is the Fallen Kingdom Stegosaurus figure. It's in a teal bluish color. It's also got the lighter underbelly. And this figure features a slashing attack with its tail when you press down on its spine right there. Let's set this down next in the Fallen Kingdom line. For Camp Cretaceous, we've got a Sinoceratops figure in the green, tan, and kind of a darkish orange color. It's also got some yellow eyes, and this figure features a tail that activates the neck so you can move it around, and the sound effects as well. For Fallen Kingdom, I believe that this is a Sinoceratops as well. It looks quite a bit different, it has some different coloring and some different horns on the front as well. And this figure features a button on its back that moves its head up and down. Here's another Sinoceratops figure, but this one is from Camp Cretaceous, and it's got some interesting coloring. The all black eyes, its body is mostly this light gray-blue coloring with some tan detailing all over as well. And this figure features the tail that you can use to move its neck around as well. On the Fallen Kingdom side, I've got another Triceratops figure in the clay orange coloring, and it's got brown detailing along the top. This figure features some huge horns on its face and an action button on its back for a slashing or a roaring action. And here is the last Triceratops of this video. This one is from Camp Cretaceous. It's got the brown and blue coloring, the huge horns in the front, and the tail that controls the head. Next in size for Fallen Kingdom is this Ankylosaurus figure. It's got the huge spikes coming out of its side, as well as the hard shell on top, and an action button along its back for swinging its tail back and forth. From Camp Cretaceous, we've got a Sarcosuchus figure with the purple, orange, red, and gray-blue coloring. This figure features a really long torso, a super long mouth, and some short stubby legs, as well as an action button on its tail to open and close the jaw, and to move its head around too. Now we're getting down to the real small figures. This is the Velociraptor blue figure from Fallen Kingdom. And this features movable legs, arms, and you can open and close its mouth as well. I've also got a Velociraptor from Camp Cretaceous here. This one is a green with darker green striping, and this figure actually features an attack button on its back that moves its claws back and forth. Let's put it right there on the Camp Cretaceous line. For Fallen Kingdom, we've got a Stygimoloch figure with the orange and purple detailing, and this figure has an action with its tail used for headbutting. And let's put this right at the end of the Fallen Kingdom line. I've also got a Stygimoloch figure for Camp Cretaceous as well. This one also has the clay coloring with the purple detailing, but this one does not feature an attack button with its tail to move its head back and forth for headbutting. And the last Fallen Kingdom figure in this collection is this extreme battle damage Herrerasaurus. You can see that you can open and close it right there on the side. And for our final dinosaur is the Monolophosaurus from Camp Cretaceous. This figure features an action where you can move its tail to open and close its jaw. All right, there is our entire Camp Cretaceous versus Fallen Kingdom, biggest to smallest. Let's check out all these Camp Cretaceous figures from big to small. And our Fallen Kingdom from biggest to smallest.
Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out a ton of Predator dinosaur figures from the Camp Cretaceous collection. And I've even got some huge brand new ones to open up today. Let's go ahead and start with these brand new ones. Let's start with the biggest one at the bottom here. This is the super colossal Indominus Rex. Let's open it up. This thing is already huge. Let's get those legs and tail on. Here is the fully assembled super colossal Indominus Rex. So first off, it has the typical coloring that the smaller Indominus Rexes have. But when you open up the mouth, you can see that there's a tunnel that goes all the way down into the stomach compartment right here. So you can actually feed this Indominus Rex miniature dinosaurs and then empty it out through the stomach right here. That is super cool. Plus, even though this thing is huge, it still is fully adjustable. Of course, you can adjust the jaw You can also twist the neck. You can adjust the arms up and down. You can move the legs and ankles. And of course, you can move the tail. All in all, I'd say this dinosaur is probably around 2 feet tall and maybe 3 feet long. We've still got 2 brand new dinosaurs to open up. Let's start with the Albertosaurus. All right, so this is a medium-sized dinosaur. As you can see, it is a mostly green dinosaur, but it has those red striping on its side from the head all the way to its stomach on both sides. And there's an action button on the tail. If you press the button, it chomps the jaw. Plus, if you twist the tail, it moves its head back and forth like that. I have a few other Albertosauruses. Some of them even have battle damage on the side. This one does not, so this is just the normal primal attack Albertosaurus. Next up, we've got a feeding frenzy Indominus Rex. Let's open it up. All right, here is the feeding frenzy Indominus Rex. Let's check it out. So it has the same coloring as the huge one that we just saw, and it has this huge face and jaw too. This dinosaur comes with tons of sound effects, and it comes with this piece of meat. Let's see what happens when you feed it. So it's making some growling noises, and when it hits the trigger in there, its eyes start glowing too. That is pretty cool. And I love how big the teeth are on this dinosaur as well. Just look at that. Those are so huge. Right up top here, we've got another Indominus Rex. This one is still huge, not quite as huge as the super colossal one that we just opened up. And as you can see, it's colored kind of the same. It has some dark gray on the top and a lighter gray on the sides. It's got those orange eyes. And this dinosaur has 2 action buttons on it. First, you've got the tail button that activates the jaw. And then you've got a button on its back that activates the slashing action. All in all, this is a really cool Indominus Rex figure. Up next, we've got a giant Spinosaurus with dark green coloring on the sides. And on its spine, there's red, white, and a little bit of green at the bottom. Plus, this Spinosaurus is fully adjustable with the neck, the arms, the legs, and the tail. And of course, you can press the button on the top of its head to open its jaw. This is a super awesome figure and huge. Right up here, we've got a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but I believe that this one was custom colored. So you won't really see coloring like this on other T-Rexes that you can get. But look how cool it is. It's bright red, black on the top, and then the orange on the sides. It almost looks like the T-Rex is on fire. That is so awesome. Back here, we've got another T-Rex. This one is normal color. It's got brown on the sides, a darker brown on the top, and the tan belly. Plus, this dinosaur has a few action buttons as well. You can move the tail, and it moves its head around, which I really like. It's super realistic. And there's even a button on the tail that you can press to open its jaw. Back here, we've got another T-Rex, but this one is battle damage. Look at that, right on the side. And pressing the button, you can turn it on and off. That is super awesome. And this T-Rex is fully adjustable with the legs, tail, neck, and the jaw as well. Back here, we've actually got another battle damage T-Rex, but this one is a bit different than the other one. Instead of having the thing on its side right here, you can see that there's a bunch of slashes all over its body, on the tail, on its legs, on its belly, and even on its face. And just like the other T-Rexes, this is fully adjustable. You can move the tail, the legs, the arms, the neck, and this one has a button at the top to make it roar. Here is another giant Spinosaurus with different coloring than the last one we saw. This one is mostly brown with the red detailing. You can see along its face it's got that bright red coloring as well as along its spine. And even on the top you can see that there's a lighter tan and then a dark brown color right along the top. That is super cool. Fully adjustable, and it has the button on the head that you can use to open its jaw. Up next, we've got the mighty Carcharodontosaurus. This dinosaur is a mostly tan yellow coloring, but but you can see that there's orange and brown striping all the way up to its head. And this dinosaur has an action button as well. With the button on its back, you can do the chomping action. Here is the Tarbosaurus. This dinosaur has totally different coloring. It is a dark gray color with black stripes all along its body. It's got those spikes all along its spine, and right on its chin and on its neck is a bright red color. This dinosaur is fully adjustable with its arms, legs, tail. The tail actually controls the head, and the button on the tail controls the jaw as well. Here's another fierce predator. This is an Allosaurus. It's a dark green color with red and white speckles on its neck and face. And it is fully adjustable, and it's got this slide action. That is super awesome. Right over here, we've got the great Metriacanthosaurus. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a yellow-green color on the sides. It's got the green coloring on top with the action button that controls its jaw. And it is fully adjustable in the legs and arms as well. Right over here, we've actually got a few Baryonyxes with totally different coloring. This first one, gray coloring with blue and a bright blue on the top, and it has a slide action for its roars. This second Baryonyx is brown colored, and it has blue detailing on the top and a bright orange top of the head. And the action button on this dinosaur activates the jaw. All right, here's another massive predator. This is a Carnitorus. This dinosaur can be controlled by its tail. When you move its tail, it moves its head around. There's also a button on the tail to activate the jaw. And I love the coloring on this. This is like a dark brown red color with speckles of like a gray color as well. So it's quite detailed and fully adjustable as usual too. Right over here, we've got a super long-nosed dinosaur. This is the Sarcophagus. This is a clay red color on the top. Look at all those spikes along the top of its body. And along the bottom is a dark green color. But I love the detail of all those spikes along its back. That really gives it a strong texture. That's really cool. And the tail, of course, controls the head, so you can move the head around. Right back here, we've got a winged dinosaur. I'm sure you recognize this from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. This is the Quetzalcoatlus, and it has two action buttons. The first on the top flaps its wings, and there's actually one on the bottom that controls the mouth. Oh, here's a dinosaur you don't see too much of. This is a Ceratosaurus. This dinosaur is gray with splotches of dark brown, and of course the red back and the super bright red face with the white horn on the very top. This dinosaur has an action button on its back that controls its jaw, and the rest of its body is fully adjustable. Right back here is another Sarcophagus, but this one has totally different coloring. It's got the blue bottom, the dark purple top, same spines though, and then it's got orange and red splotches all over its back. That is super cool. Here is another unusual predator. This is the Majungasaurus. This dinosaur is pretty brightly colored. Although it's mostly green in the back, it has those bright yellow coloring right along its back and that bright blue color right on its neck and on its head. And this figure has quite a lot of sound effects, as you can hear. The tail also moves the head around so you can make it look super realistic. All right, this is another super noisy dinosaur. This is the Cryolophosaurus. This figure is dark blue around most of its body, and it's got the orange head and neck as well. I love that accent. And with this tail, you can adjust the head and wiggle it around. How cool is that? All right, right, here is a full-sized Allosaurus. I love the coloring on this dinosaur. It's got the tan yellow bottom and the bright blue top. That is so cool. I think we've actually got two Allosauruses here, both with different coloring. So let's check this one out first. This one has two action buttons on the top. The first controls its jaw, and the second button controls its arms. How cool is that? The legs are fully adjustable, and the tail you can twist as well. The second Allosaurus is mostly gray with the yellow splotches all along the top of its body. And this has one action button on its back where you press it and it controls the jaw. Right over here, we've got a brightly colored Suchomimus. This is a bright yellow with brown along its spine, and this dinosaur has a few action buttons. The first controls its neck and jaw, and the second controls its tail. Plus, the rest of the figure is fully adjustable as well. Oh, here's actually a second Suchomimus with totally different coloring. This one is mostly blue along the entire body, but it's got the yellow detailing along its spine as well as those splotches. And this Suchomimus has one action on its back. When you press it down, it does a chomping action. All right, here's another Baryonyx with different coloring. This Baryonyx is light brown on the sides and the belly, and on the top has a dark blue coloring all along its back to the tail and to the head. But the coolest part of the coloring is this super reflective blue coloring right on its head. This Baryonyx is fully adjustable, and it has one action button for its jaw. Here is another Cryolophosaurus. This one is differently colored than the last one that we saw. It's mostly yellow with the brown on the top and of course the bright orange crown on its head. This dinosaur is fully adjustable. You can move the tail to adjust the head. And of course, as you can hear, it comes with tons of sound effects. Here is another Metriacanthosaurus. But once again, different coloring than the last one we saw. This one is a bright red color with brown detailing all along its back. And on the head, you can see that it's got that bright orange and yellow coloring. There is one action button on this dinosaur, and that controls the jaw. Up next, we've got another Carcharodontosaurus. Check out the coloring on this one. This is a bright blue coloring, and it's got the brown and orange specks on its back and neck, and right around its eye as well. This dinosaur is fully adjustable with legs, arms, and tail, and there's one action button on its back that when you press, it does a chomping action. All right. We've got another Baryonyx right here. This one is bright green with brown on the top. And as usual, the arms and legs are fully adjustable, and there is one action button on the top that controls its jaw. All right, check this one out. I remember this from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. This is a Dimetrodon. And look at that huge spine on its back. It's red with yellow speckles all over it. And with this dinosaur figure, when you wiggle the tail back and forth, it opens and closes its jaw. All right, I see a ton of velociraptors in here. Let's pull a few out. This velociraptor is a green color with a darker green along the top and is fully adjustable. Even with the mouth, you can open and close. The second velociraptor is different coloring. This is a blue along most of its body. It's got the tan bottom, but the coolest part of all, it's got the yellow along the top and a shining gold along its head. It's actually reflective, which is super cool. And this velociraptor is mostly tan. You can see it along the bottom and the sides with the brown top. But most importantly, this velociraptor has a slashing action. It is spring-loaded, so you can actually twist its torso back and forth, and it'll do this slashing action. All right over here, we've got a baby T-Rex with a jaw-chomping action, brightly green colored, and fully adjustable. And this is a Dilophosaurus. It is mostly gray colored with darker gray along the top. But this Dilophosaurus actually has an action. When you move the tail, it activates its frills. That's so cool. We've still got more velociraptors in here. Let's check them out. Here are 4 velociraptors. The first is an orangish velociraptor, and it has the slashing action. The next velociraptor is a bright red color with green striping on the top. Look at how bright this velociraptor is, and it is fully adjustable. The next velociraptor is a classic one. This is blue, and it comes with battle damage on the side as well. And this velociraptor is more of a yellow coloring with brown on the top. This one also comes with battle damage on the side as well. All right, just a few dinosaurs left. This is a Herrerasaurus. It is all green, and it has different shades of green all along its body. And it is fully adjustable with the mouth, the neck, the arms, and the legs. Over here, we've got a weird looking dinosaur. This is the Shringosaurus. Look at those huge horns on its head, and the brown coloring on the top and the yellow on the sides. This is quite the odd looking dinosaur. At least I think so. And our last 2 dinosaurs of this collection. First, we've got the Great Dimorphodon. This is mostly a gray color with a dark red along the bottom of its wings, but it's still fully adjustable with its legs, its mouth, its neck, and its wings. And this velociraptor is a dark gray color with yellow detailing right along the top of it, and is fully adjustable as well. Today, I'm showing you my ultimate collection of Velociraptor versus Baryonyx versus Carnitorus figures. Let's get started with these brand new ones that I just bought to add to this collection. First up, we've got Baryonyx Limbo from the Camp Cretaceous pack. Let's open it up. This is so cool. This is actually the first of this Baryonyx that I have in my collection. It's got a lime green body, it's got a darker green along the bottom of its back, and it's got some brown detailing on its neck all the way to the top of its head. You can move all the limbs and the tail on this figure, and there is a slide lever action for roaring and the sound effects. Next up, we've got the Velociraptor from the Jurassic World Attack Pack. Let's check it out. This Velociraptor has some pretty unique coloring. It's got a dark blue body and a dark red detailing along the top, which is pretty unique. I don't know that I have another figure colored like this. And here we've got another Velociraptor, but this is actually from the Hammond collection. Let's open it up and check it out. This Velociraptor figure is even darker than the one that we just saw. It's got a dark green body with brown detailing on the tail, all over the back on its legs, and it's still got the lighter underbelly all the way to the chin. And since it's a Hammond collection figure, you'll notice that it is much more posable than a lot of the classic Velociraptor figures. You can move basically every limb on this figure. Let's dig into this bin now, and we're gonna start with the Velociraptors over here on the left. The first one here is Velociraptor Delta from the Amber collection. You'll notice with all these Amber collection figures that they are very posable, just like the Hammond collection figures. And Velociraptor Delta here has some bright blue coloring with a lighter underbelly. This is Velociraptor Blue from the Amber collection. Very posable, just like the last one. Can move the tail and all the limbs. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe all the way down the body on both sides. This, I believe, is Velociraptor Echo. This is also from the Amber collection. It's got the light underbelly, a brown body with some darker striping, and the black top too. The next Velociraptor from the Amber collection is, I believe this one is called the Tiger Velociraptor. I can't quite remember. Let me know down in the comments if you remember. I also forgot to mention earlier that in all the Amber collection Velociraptors, you can actually move this claw up and down, just like real life. This last Velociraptor from the Amber collection is Velociraptor Charlie. This figure has a lime green body with darker green detailing all over its back and tail. It's got this headpiece attached to its head, and just like all the other ones, it is very posable and adjustable, and you can stand it in any way you want on your shelf. Let's see what other Velociraptor figures we got in here. I've got these smaller ones. This bright red Velociraptor is actually spring-loaded on its legs, so you can spring it up into the air, which is really cool. It's also got some pretty bright and awesome coloring too. This other Velociraptor is also spring-loaded in the legs, so you can spring it into the air, and it's also got some bright coloring too. And of course, I've got Velociraptor Blue in the smaller figure with battle damage on the side. Right over here, I've got some Jurassic Park Velociraptors. So these figures are some of the oldest in my collection. You can see the Jurassic Park tattoo on their legs on both of them, but they've both got some different coloring. This is an orange and red Velociraptor, and this one, which I'm sure you've seen before, is brown with the black striping all over its body. This Velociraptor is pretty normal looking. It's got the brown body, a little darker brown on the top, but my favorite part is that it's got some bright green eyes. This next Velociraptor figure is another spring-loaded leaping Velociraptor. This one is also super brightly colored. It's got the bright blue on the sides with the darker blue along the top. Here is another Velociraptor figure with muted colors. It's got the gray body with the dark blue detailing along the top and some soft orange eyes. This is another version of Velociraptor Blue, but this one is the spring-loaded leaping version. So just like the others that I've shown you, you can bend down on its legs and it'll spring up into the air if you let it go. And of course, it's got the iconic blue coloring. Here is a basic Velociraptor figure from Jurassic World. It's a lot larger, but the limbs cannot move as much, and it's not as versatile. Even the jaw cannot open and close. But it's still got some pretty cool coloring, the orange body, brown detailing, and yellow eyes. This is another basic figure from Jurassic World, but this is Velociraptor Blue. It's got the soft green-blue body with the iconic blue stripe down on both sides of its body and the yellow eyes. You know what? I almost forgot these super colossal figures right here. This first Velociraptor is black around most of its body, but it's got this brown striping down the sides with some yellow speckling that's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's also a little bit on its arm as well. It's got some super amazing colored eyes, and of course this super huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs down to its stomach compartment. Way back here, we've got the super colossal Velociraptor Blue figure. This super colossal figure is very similar to the Velociraptor that I just showed you. It's even got the same amazingly colored eyes. And of course, it's got the iconic blue stripe down both sides of its body. Pretty adjustable with its limbs. And of course, it's got the stomach compartment down from its throat all the way down to its stomach, so you can feed it miniature dinosaurs. All right, I think that's it for all our Velociraptor figures. Now let's move to the Baryonyx figures right here in the center. The first one is the Baryonyx figure from the Hammond collection. So you'll see that this figure is very posable and adjustable with all its limbs. Plus, it's got a little more detail than most of the other Baryonyx figures. Next up, we've got the Baryonyx with the battle damage on its body. You can see a huge slash on its neck. It's got some on its leg as well. And I think that's the only battle damage that's shown on this figure. But it's also got the button on its back for the chomping. This is an older Baryonyx figure from Jurassic Park. So this figure is a lot older, and as you can see, it is designed quite a bit differently. But it also has an action that when you move the leg back and forth, the head twists. This is a brighter Baryonyx. It's got a light gray body with white, dark blue, and bright blue detailing on the top of its head. And this figure comes with a slide lever action for different roars and sound effects. This next Baryonyx figure is similar to the one that I opened up at the very beginning of the video, but it has a slightly more forced green color, and it has two tones of brown on the top. It's got the light brown in the back and the dark brown along its neck, and then the light brown right along the top of its head once again. This Baryonyx figure came out during the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got the light brown body with the blue detailing along the top and the super bright orange along the top of its head and nose. Here is another Baryonyx figure from the Jurassic Park series. So this figure, once again, is a lot older. It has the bright yellow underbelly and some light brown with black specks along the top. And like the other Jurassic Park Baryonyx that we saw earlier, it has the action that when you move its leg, its head twists back and forth. Here is our final Baryonyx of the bin. This figure has a light brown side and underbelly. It's got the dark blue detailing all along the top from the tail to the head, and it's got the bright blue reflective coloring right along the top of its head and nose too. There's only one more dinosaur left in the bin, and that is the Carnitorus figures. Let's start with the super colossal Carnitorus Toro figure. This figure has the iconic clay red sides with the lighter underbelly and the brown top. It's got the two huge horns on the top of its head. It's got a little bit of battle damage on the right side of its face. And of course, it's got a huge jaw that you can open up all the way to feed it miniature dinosaurs. This Carnitorus figure is from the Fallen Kingdom era. It's got some darker red coloring with some purplish coloring along the top. And this Carnitorus has a different action button than all the rest that I'll show you. It has a chomping action that moves its neck as well. This, I believe, is the Control and Conquer Carnitorus. It has a much darker red, pretty much brown coloring along its body. It's got a gray underbelly and a dark brown top. And with this figure, the tail controls the neck so you can twist it back and forth, as well as the button on its tail for chomping. This next Carnitorus, I believe, might be from Camp Cretaceous, but I can't quite remember. It's got a lighter red and slightly orange coloring along the side with the brown top and the gray underbelly. And this figure also has the tail that controls the head, as well as the button for chomping. I've also got some smaller Carnitorus figures in here that are not from Jurassic World, but are a bit more generic, but they differ quite a bit more with the coloring. You can see that this one's got some green coloring with it. Still got the iconic horns though. And this figure has some bright orange along its face. You won't see that with the Jurassic World figures. And this figure looks a bit more like Jurassic World with the red and the spines. But this figure has some ginormous horns on the top of its head. That's really cool. Here we've got the Carnitorus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's even got the broken horn on the top of its head. This figure is colored entirely different too. It's got the dark green body with the orange detailing along the top. So it looks like they started to mix it up for the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. And last of all, we've got the Jurassic World Chompin' Carnitorus figure. This figure looks more like a baby Carnitorus in a lot of ways. It's got some huge eyes that you can actually blink with by pressing the button on the top of its head. And it's got a button on the bottom of its tail for a chomping action. Welcome to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out all of my vintage Jurassic Park figures. Some of these figures were even made in 1993, so let's go ahead and get started. The first that we're gonna unbox is one that I actually just bought on eBay. This is a Spinosaurus JP39. This looks a lot different from the new Jurassic World Spinosauruses, for sure. You can see it's got a green and gray body. It's still got the big old spine, but the head shape is different, and it's quite a bit smaller, but it does have some actions too. You can see you can pull down on the arm for the chomping. You can see some wear and tear throughout the body, but I got it for a pretty good price, so. This T-Rex is an original 1993 Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex made by Kenner. It's got an all soft body. It's a soft rubber. It's got a green underbelly and a red side with spots. Its legs, though, are made of hard plastic, and then it transitions up to the soft rubber right up here. And with this figure, when you squeeze the stomach, it has a roaring function. It used to have sound effects, and it doesn't work too well anymore, but it's a pretty old figure, so what can you expect? Next up, we've got the JP53 Chaos Effect Velociraptorix from Jurassic Park. This is a pretty interesting looking dinosaur. They definitely aren't making any figures that look quite like this anymore. See, it's got these spikes all over its body. It's got these wing-like things and a super long tail with those spikes at the end as well. And you can see that it actually is spring-loaded so that when you move the legs, its neck can move up and down and its arms go up and down too. Next up, we've got a smaller figure. This is the Chasmosaurus, JP21. This figure is in decent condition. You can see it's got the tan side, brown underbelly, and the gray top. Plus, it has an action with its leg that when you pull it, it goes into a roaring position. And the sound effects still work, actually. Next up is the Jurassic Park Lost World Tyrannosaurus Rex from 1997. This is the JP28 figure. This once again has the rubber body. It has some pretty cool coloring with yellow, black, and green blue color, and a light underbelly. And you can see that it actually has the throat tunnel all the way down to its stomach, just like the super colossal figures I have now, but a bit smaller. This figure back here, I believe, is another Lost World Tyrannosaurus from 1997. You can see it's colored way differently. I believe this one was custom colored at some point, but it's got the hard front arms that you can swivel, plastic legs, and then the rest of the body is rubber. And this also has the throat tunnel down to its stomach too. Now, obviously, this isn't a dinosaur, but this is still from Jurassic Park. This is the Lost World Humvee capture vehicle. See that it's got these things that come down on the side, as well as these that go up top. I believe these are for humans to sit inside so that they can see way higher when they're riding way high up on the car. Next up is the 1997 Jurassic Park Lost World Thrasher Tyrannosaurus Rex. This T-Rex has hard plastic legs. The entire leg is made of hard plastic on both sides, as are the arms, but the rest of the body is that soft rubber again. And with this figure, when you move the tail around, it actually swings its head back and forth. Way over here on the edge, we've got a super colossal T-Rex. Now, I actually don't know how old this figure is, but it looks quite a bit different than all the other super colossal T-Rexes that I have. Might have been custom painted, but let's check it out. You can see the battle damage on the side. Plus, it comes with some sound effects when you open the mouth. That's pretty awesome. And just like all the rest of my super colossal figures, it is pretty adjustable. You can move the tail, the legs, the arm, and you can open up its mouth really big. Up next, we've got a Jurassic Park puppet. This thing is pretty old, and I believe it is a Velociraptor. It's made entirely out of rubber, so the whole thing is pretty soft. This is the Jurassic Park Lost World Stegosaurus, JP24. You can see that I don't have the battle damage cover anymore. I'm not sure where that went. But this figure has a harder plastic body, and the tail is a softer rubber that swings back and forth. Here is the classic Triceratops from Jurassic Park. This is JP08. See, it's got the battle damage on the side, and just like many of the other figures, it's got a soft rubbery body and a function when you squeeze the stomach, the head goes up and down. Next up is the JP06 Battle Damage Tyrannosaurus figure. This figure, once again, has a soft rubbery body throughout most, except for the feet are hard plastic and the arms. Most of its body is a light tan color with that darker striping on top, and it's got a lighter underbelly. And let's check out that battle damage on the side too. You can see the bones and a little bit of underneath the bones too. Next up is the Jurassic Park 3 sound activated stalking raptor. Now the motor doesn't work in this figure, but originally you could turn it on and it would be able to walk forwards slowly and stealthily. This figure is hard plastic all over. It's got the light underbelly, the dark brown sides, and a purple color right along the top. This is the Lost World Pteranodon, JP22. This figure is really old and it's a little worn down, as you can see. It's got the blue and gold body. Its wings are actually a fabric, and there's a button on the top of its body used for flapping its wings. Here's another flying dinosaur. This is JP48. This, I believe, is an Ankyloranodon. It's got some bright green on the underside and purple on the top. Check out those claws. And there's actually a button on its back that you press, and it curls its tail inward. And all in all, this is probably over a foot long from wingtip to wingtip. Next up, we've got JP63. This is the Jurassic Park Baryonyx. I've actually got another one, another very similar Baryonyx right here. And both of them have an action with the leg. When you move the leg, it moves its head back and forth. Next up is the JP23 Pachycephalosaurus with a ramming head. Now it's slightly broken because when I press the button, the head will fly off, but that's a pretty cool spring-loaded head ramming action. Here we've got the JP19 Lost World Parasaurolophus. This dinosaur has some pretty cool coloring with the striping down its back and the red right around its head and neck. And this dinosaur also has an action button. You press on its back and it runs. This is the JP18 Jurassic Park Velociraptor. This dinosaur has some pretty unique patterns over its body. It's got the striping, but it's also got these dots and on its arms and neck as well. And it's really quiet because it's an old figure, but it actually does have sound effects. This figure is the Jurassic Park 1994 Utah Raptor. Most of its body is that soft rubber, aside from its legs, which are hard plastic, and its arms. And on this dinosaur, the legs are spring-loaded, so that when you press beneath its tail, it'll dip down for a chomp. This is JP58. This is an Amargospinus. This has some pretty cool coloring with the black, tan, and red all over its body, and it has an action with its leg that when you pull it, these spines stand up on its back, on its neck, and it opens its jaw too. This figure is the JP44 Lost World Triceratops. This is a smaller figure. It's got that dark green coloring, and this figure also has an action. When you move the leg, it lifts its head up for a roar. Next up, we've got the JP02 Dilophosaurus. This is a pretty small figure, and you can only move the legs on this one. But this is a classic Jurassic Park figurine. Next up is JP47. This is an Allosaurus, and it actually has battle damage that you can take on and off. Look at those huge pieces that you can take off to see what's underneath. You can take it off the leg as well, see the bone underneath. And you can even remove parts of its tail too. That is super cool. Here we've got JP42. I believe this is a baby T-Rex. It's actually got a broken leg on its right side. It's got that dark coloring on the top and the light brown and tan on the bottom too. I've got some identical JP06 Velociraptor figures. They've got the brown sides, the dark top, and the light underbelly. This is JP12. I believe it is called a Lycinops, and it looks kind of like a saber-toothed tiger. Next up, the JP10 Velociraptor. This has a bright red top and a yellow side and a white underbelly, and when you move its legs, it actually opens up its arms. Plus, I've even got some classic figurines. I've got two of the Lost World Ian Malcolm glider action figures. I've got the 1997 Ian Malcolm figure.
Come on!
And I've got the Alan Grant figurine as well. I think I've got a few more human figurines in here. This first one is the Robert Muldoon figurine.
Oh boy!
This second one, I believe, is Harpoon Harrison.
Awesome!
And I believe this one is the Jurassic Park Lost World Nick Van Owen.
Gotcha!
Last but not least, we've got a few teeny tiny figures in here. Can you guess what type of dinosaurs these are? Let me know in the comments below.
Oh boy! Awesome!
Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.